Now let me tell you something. Can you imagine a baby being declared a king? Normally, in a royal setting, a child who is born of a king, the child is a prince or a princess, and will only become a king when the monarch dies or steps aside. But when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah, he was born king of the Jews. I've come to tell you that Jesus is the best friend you can ever have. That's why the nigger spiritual song says, give me Jesus in the morning, give me Jesus at noonday, and give me Jesus when the sun goeth down. And this morning, I want to let you know that Jesus is not just in the house, he's right beside you. Oh, when Jesus steps in, he makes all the difference. And somebody may ask the question, why is it that I'm a Christian and yet I have so much troubles in my life? You know, there are some persons who believe that when they come to Jesus, then Jesus is going to give them a smooth sailing experience, that there isn't going to be any body telling lies on you. Some people believe that when they join the church, it's going to be like a bed of roses. Some people believe that when they hook up on the salvation train, then there will be no rock and no bumps in the road. That is going to be nice and easy. But let me tell you something. It is not like that. But any man who walks with God, he walks into trouble. But the trouble will never get the better of you. Because as long as Jesus is beside you, no trouble can get the better of you, because my Jesus knows the way through the storm. One of the songs says, if Christ is in your vessel, you can smile at the storm. I come to tell you that serving God means you're going to have some trouble, but that's all right. Jesus knows the way out of trouble. You know, one man, he was going through the jungle. He had an accident and he ended up in a thick, dark jungle in South America. And he was in serious trouble. He was wondering, how am I going to get out of this jungle? There are anacondas in this jungle. There are the black and green mamba in this jungle, and cobra snakes in the jungle, and lions in the jungle. All sorts of dangers in the jungle. And while he was there contemplating his fate, he started to pray and ask God to do something. And after he prayed, he saw a native of the jungle coming, somebody who was born and bred in that area. And he said to the person, I'm in trouble, won't you help me? The person said, don't worry, what's your problem? He said, I don't know the way out of the jungle. The person said, well, all right, you can follow me because I know the path out of the jungle. I said, you know the path? Yes, I know the path. He said, but I've been looking around and I don't see any path out of the jungle. I look to the east, west, north, south, there's no path. And the man said, you are right. There is no path. I am the path out of the jungle. Because I know the jungle. Let me tell you something. You may be in a jungle right now. You can't see how your bills are going to be paid. But Jesus is your path out of the jungle. You can trust in him. He will lead you safely through. The story of our text this morning tells us about somebody who was having a serious problem. When we get to the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all three of them, the synoptic Gospels, they speak about this situation with this woman. The Bible tells us very clearly that this woman was a lady suffering. Now, we don't know her name. The Bible never gave us the name. The Bible only speaks here about the condition. In Mark 5 and verse 25, the Bible says that there was a certain woman, and she had an issue of blood for 12 years. Now stay with the preacher. Here was a woman who had an issue of blood. Now let me tell you something. Your blood is perhaps the most precious of all that's in your body. If you have a good heart, if you have good kidneys, if you have a good liver and good lungs, but you haven't got a good blood, you're still in trouble. Your blood is critically important. That vital substance that surges through your veins, let me tell you something, that blood is necessary for you to survive. And this woman, she had an issue of blood, meaning that blood was running from her. Now, those who are specialists in the field of biology and physiology, they say that the woman probably had cancer of the uterus, or she probably had leukemia or some other bleeding disorder. We don't know for sure. The Bible doesn't tell us the biological terms. All the Bible tells us is that she had an issue of blood. Wherever she walked, she would leave a trail of blood and flies behind her. She was not welcomed in certain social circles because in those days they never had sophisticated napkins that could help her. And she had this issue of blood, and it made her embarrassed. You know, I can imagine there must have been times when she went to greet some folks and she would hope and maybe stand with her feet close together that as she greets them everything would be alright. But in the midst of the greeting she would feel that warm substance coming down, and before long the flies would betray the presence of blood, and she was greatly embarrassed, and as she walked, you know, and the stench was there. She was in trouble. She was in a bad shape. And no one could help her. The Bible tells us that she spent all the money she had. She was a desperate woman. There are some people sitting here this morning. You are in a desperate situation. You have been doing the best you can, but you're still in trouble. She was in trouble. She didn't know what to do. She went from doctor to doctor. She got all sorts of medical concoctions, but they never helped her until she heard about Jesus. Now when she heard about Jesus, hope began to revive in her. The Bible said she heard about Jesus. And I have often asked myself the question, I wonder, what did she hear about Jesus? I believe she heard that there were 10 lepers that met him on his way from Galilee to Jerusalem. And these lepers, they were in a bad shape. They were the social outcasts. And they walked up to Jesus. Jesus always happens to go where good people avoid. Jesus always happens to go where people need him most. He always shows up in circumstances where he can make a difference. And Jesus walked here on the border between Samaria and Galilee, and the lepers saw him, and they cried out, Master, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy upon us. And my Bible tells me that Jesus had compassion on them, and Jesus cleansed the 10 lepers. I believe that Jesus still has the power over diseases today. Jesus cleansed them, and they were well, and one of them came back, and he glorified God. I believe she heard about the story of the lepers. I believe that Jesus did so many wonderful things, that she also heard that there was a man named Nicodemus who was a wealthy man. According to the historians, he had so much money he could feed the entire city of Jerusalem for 10 years and would not go broke. He was wealthy, but in spite of his big bank account, there was something missing from his life, something that money could not satisfy. He had a deep void in his life, and he decided one night he was going to find Jesus. And when he got to Jesus, Jesus gave him something that was more precious than his riches. He left that night richer than he came, because now he had spiritual riches. I believe she heard about Jesus. And she decided, man, I gotta find this Jesus.